A reunion is coming, but it is not the one you've been waiting for. Netflix has confirmed it. A 2026 documentary series, starring Zayn Malik. But the real headline? The co-star, Louis Tomlinson. The news dropped like a bomb, sending shockwaves through a fandom that's been holding its breath for a decade. But this isn't a celebration. For millions, this isn't a reunion at all. It's a division. It's the final public confirmation of a fracture that has defined one direction since the day Zayn walked away. The real story isn't who's in this documentary. It's who's been left out. The fact that Harry Styles and Niall Horan are missing is not an accident. It's not an oversight. It's a choice. It's the final chapter in a saga of betrayal, grief, and forgiveness. It reveals the one bond that was strong enough to survive it all, and the ones that were quietly left to fade. This isn't just about a TV show. It's about the Great Divide. It forces us to ask the one question we've all been afraid to answer. What really went down behind the scenes to create such a clear, public, and final split? To understand why Harry and Niall are on the outside looking in, we have to go back. We have to trace the story of the one friendship that went to hell and back, while the others simply disappeared. Chapter 1. The Inciting Incident. The announcement came in early 2025. A 3-part road trip series. It will follow Zayn and Louis driving across America. They'll discuss their solo careers, fatherhood, the pressures of fame, and most powerfully, they will open up about the loss of their friend and bandmate, Liam Payne. For years, any talk of a reunion was just a fantasy. The rifts were legendary. The silence was deafening. But this was different. This wasn't a rumor. It was a multi-million-pound deal, a press release, a named director. It was real. And it felt less like a party, and more like proof. Proof of what we all suspected was true. The deafening silence from Harry Styles and Niall Horan said everything. They would not be a part of it. Why? Why just these two? After everything they have all been through, why would a project move forward that so brutally excludes half the band? This wasn't an oversight. It was the point. To find the real answer, we have to dig into the most volatile, complicated, and painful relationship in the band's history. The bond between Louis Tomlinson and Zayn Malik. Their story of fallout and forgiveness is the key to understanding why they're standing together now, and why the others are keeping their distance. It's a story that starts with a very public war. Chapter 2, Exhibit A, From Betrayal to Brotherhood. To understand the weight of this documentary, you have to understand the ashes it rose from. The friendship between Louis and Zayn wasn't just a casualty of the breakup. For a time, it was the very symbol of the band's painful implosion. They were the fun ones. The troublemakers. Their bond seemed effortless. Then came March 2015. Zayn quit the band mid-tour. It was a shock. But the real drama played out online, for everyone to see. A nasty Twitter feud erupted. Louis, clearly hurt, took a shot at Zayn's new producer. And Zayn shot back. At Louis. Remember when you had a life and stopped making bitchy comments about mine? It was public. It was brutal. For the fans, it was like a civil war. The bond they called Zoe's was shattered. In one tweet, the bridge was burned to the ground. For years, that's where their story ended. They went their separate ways. They dropped solo music. They never mentioned each other. The silence felt permanent. In a 2019 interview, Louis admitted he wasn't sure if he and Zayn were mature enough to even talk. The wound was just too deep. But behind the scenes, something was quietly starting to change. The first step came not from a publicist, but from Louis's mother, Johannah. Just before she tragically died in 2016, she gave him a final piece of advice. Louis later recalled her saying, "My mum said, you've got to get back in contact with Zayn. Life's too short." It wasn't an instant fix. The wounds were deep. Louis admitted he was devastated when Zayn didn't show up to his X Factor performance honoring his mother. It was an event Harry, Niall, and Liam all attended. Zayn was once again missing. The betrayal, it seemed, was still fresh. But a mother's last wish is a powerful thing. Zayn later explained he was struggling, that he figured his presence wouldn't be wanted. It was a classic, tragic miscommunication. But the seed for forgiveness had been planted. Over the next few years, little signs started to pop up. A like on an Instagram post. A supportive comment on a song. Fans, desperate for hope, called them breadcrumbs. They were small, but they were real. Then, in early 2025, something changed. Louis was spotted at one of Zayn's concerts in LA. Fans even caught the moment Zayn gave a shout-out from the stage, "An old friend of mine is here supporting me tonight." By September 2025, they were photographed hanging out in New York. After almost a decade of bad blood, the feud was officially over. This reunion wasn't for the cameras. It was a hard-won piece. It was built over years of quiet effort, pushed forward by a mother's wisdom. But this fragile, new friendship was about to be tested, and forged in fire. The feud was over. But it would take an unimaginable tragedy to make it a brotherhood again. Chapter 3: The Catalyst. Every story has a turning point. For the members of One Direction, that moment came on October 16, 2024. The news of Liam Payne's tragic death stopped the world. For his former bandmates, it was a seismic event. It forced them, after years of silence and separation, to confront their fractured brotherhood. In the immediate aftermath, the 4 surviving members released a rare joint statement. "We're completely devastated," they wrote. "We will take some time to grieve and process the loss of our brother, who we loved dearly." It was a brief, painful moment of unity. A month later, the world saw it. Harry, Louis, Niall, and Zayn reunited. But this wasn't the triumphant reunion anyone had dreamed of. This was a nightmare. Dressed in black, their faces etched with a grief we can only imagine, they stood together at a small church in England to say goodbye. This moment, this shared tragedy, is the emotional core of our story. Profound loss has a way of crystallizing what's important. It strips away pride. It burns away old grudges. It forces you to decide who you turn to when your world shatters. And for Louis and Zayn, this was the final devastating push. This wasn't a hypothetical pain. Both men had navigated huge personal losses in the public eye before. Louis, having lost his mother and his sister. Zayn, having been open about his own struggles. They, more than the others, shared a specific, dark language of public grief. Liam's death didn't create their bond. It solidified it. It accelerated their path back to each other, making this documentary not just a project, but a form of public processing, a way to heal. But for Harry and Niall, the grief, while no less real, was processed differently. It forced a choice. And that choice reveals exactly why they are nowhere to be seen in this Netflix series. We've traced the feud, the reconciliation, and the tragedy that redefined it all. This channel is dedicated to finding the story behind the story, and if you appreciate this kind of deep dive emotional analysis, please take a moment to subscribe. Your support makes it possible to tell these complex stories. Now, for the final verdict. Chapter 4, Exhibit B, The Great Divide. So, why not Harry and Niall? The answer is simpler and sadder than you might think. The story of Zayn's relationship with them is completely different. There were no explosive Twitter fights. No public meltdowns. Instead, there was something quieter. And maybe, even more final. A steady, unshakable distance. Let's start with Harry. The vibe between Harry Styles and Zayn Malik has always been polite, but distant. They were never the pair joking around. In a telling 2017 interview, Zayn put it bluntly. "To be honest, I never really spoke to Harry even when I was in the band." He said because of this, he never expected to have a relationship with Harry after the band. And that's exactly what happened. There was no big fight because there was no deep friendship to break. They were colleagues. When Zayn left, Harry's comments were always diplomatic. He even famously shaded Zayn during his Saturday Night Live monologue. That Ringo jab. It's playful but it's cold. That's not the language of a betrayed friend. It's the arm's-length humor of a former coworker. Their paths just went in different directions, and neither of them ever tried to bring them back together. This wasn't a fight. It was something far more permanent. A drift. And then there's Niall Horan. If Louis was the fire and Harry was the ice, Niall has always been the band's peacekeeper. The Switzerland of One Direction. Through all the years of drama, Niall has stayed brilliantly, beautifully neutral. His public image is that of an easygoing, drama-free guy who just wants everyone to get along. His absence from the documentary isn't a snub. It's a choice that fits his character perfectly. Niall has handled the band's history on his terms. Privately. For him, joining a documentary that would, by necessity, dig up old wounds and painful fights. It's a step backward. His exclusion doesn't scream animosity. It suggests a preference for peace. He doesn't need to rehash the drama, because he was never really in the middle of it. This leaves us with two clear, unofficial camps. Not camps of war, but of experience. And that's the final answer. Chapter 5. The Final Verdict. When you put all the pieces together, the picture is crystal clear. The exclusion of Harry Styles and Niall Horan from this documentary isn't new drama. It's the logical result of a decade of different paths. This Netflix series isn't a One Direction reunion. It's a story about Zayn and Louis. It's a stage for two people who share a uniquely turbulent history to finally close that chapter. Their journey involved a spectacular public war and an equally significant private reconciliation, both supercharged by shared, unbearable tragedy. They have a specific, painful, and powerful story to tell. This has created two distinct camps within the legacy. Not warring factions, but symbolic groups, representing two different ways of healing. The Zayn Louis camp is about direct confrontation. It's about public healing. They are choosing to face their ghosts head-on, together, on camera. It's messy. It's vulnerable. But it's their way of finding closure. The Harry Niall camp represents the path of quiet evolution. Both Harry and Niall have built their solo careers by looking forward, not back. Their brands are built on artistic growth and keeping things positive. For them, joining a project that would rehash the most painful moments of their lives, it's moving backward. Their absence isn't about old grudges. It's about protecting their peace. It's choosing to honor the past from a distance, rather than reliving it for an audience. This documentary isn't trying to erase Harry and Niall. It's telling a specific story that simply isn't theirs to tell. It's the story of the two members who fell the furthest apart and had to fight their way back to each other. The story of One Direction has always been about brotherhood. This project just redefines what that brotherhood looks like a decade later. Not one big, happy family, but a complex web of individual relationships, each with its own history of love, conflict, and healing. So, the last question is for you. Is this documentary a beautiful story of reconciliation? Or does it just draw a new permanent line in the sand, confirming that the One Direction we knew is truly gone forever? Let me know what you think in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, and you appreciate this kind of deep dive emotional analysis, subscribe to the channel for more stories just like this. And if you found this breakdown insightful, share it. It helps more than you know. Thanks for watching.